Time for another lore compilation, and wow, I have to thank y'all so much for the reaction to the previous video. It blew up so quickly and a lot of y'all seem to really enjoy it. I'm gonna do my best to keep making content y'all enjoy. I am working on something that I'm hoping to get done and uploaded by next week. There's a little bit more research involved, but it's also covering less issues than the Rouge video, so I think it'll balance out. We are in the holiday season and things have already gotten a little hectic last month, but hopefully nothing too big gets in the way. Anyway, on with the compilation. Athair is a character who appears in the Archie comics and is Knuckles' great-grandfather. First appearing in the Tales miniseries, he too was once a guardian of the Master Emerald before passing the position down to his own son and becoming the leader of the Lost Tribe. After the Lost Tribe was captured and roboticized by Robotnik, Athair became an agent of the Ancient Walkers, providing sagely advice to our heroes. And when the Ancient Walkers were destroyed, he was one of the three who were chosen to become the new guardians of the Chaos Force. Most interestingly, Athair would be one of the few Sonic characters who debuted in the comics to make appearances in other Sonic media, making a few appearances in Sonic Underground. So yesterday I headed over to the shaved ice store Bahama Bucks to check out their current ongoing Sonic promotion. They have collectible surprise spoons of different characters, and my goal was to get the Shadow and Amy spoon since they're my favorite characters. We ordered both the Sonic Snow and the Shadow Snow in their collector's cups. They were out of the Sour Patch sauce for the Sonic Snow, so they topped it with Nerds instead. I ended up enjoying the Shadow one a lot more than the Sonic one. The Sonic one's flavor was a bit too intense for me, as opposed to the Shadow one, which was a more subdued flavor. Weirdly reflective of the characters. On my first attempt with the character spoons, I got Shadow and Knuckles, so since I was already halfway to my goal, I bought 3 more spoons, and I got Sonic, another Knuckles, and luckily Amy. This does mean that Tails is the only spoon I don't have, but I might go back for it anyway. I did very much enjoy what I ordered. Also gotta try that secret Eggman flavor.
And I said that's disgusting!
King Gong is a character who appears in issue 17 of the Archie Sonic comics and is obviously a parody of King Kong. One of Robotnik's earliest creations, the mechanical ape escaped from his labs moments after being created, causing destruction before settling on Skull Island. Years later, Robotnik would track down his creation and regain control of it, sending it after Sonic and friends. However, predictably for a Kong parody, the ape becomes infatuated with Princess Sally and scales a tall building with her. Tails manages to free her from his grip, while Sonic and Antoine spray the tower with a Super Soaker, causing Gong to lose his grip, leading him to plummet to his destruction. In the possible future of Light Mobius, Espio has 2 daughters, Juanita and Salma. Juanita, despite being mentioned a handful of times, only appears once, while Salma is much more present in the story, as Knuckles catches her hooking up with his nephew and she later hangs out with Lara Sue as well as Sonic's kids. It's also not especially clear who their mom is. As you probably know, I picked up Pender's new book, The Lara Sue Chronicles Beginnings, and was very confused about who this was, as she doesn't show up in the new stories at all. And thanks to my comments section and a bit of my own research, I found out that this is supposed to be Salma. That redesign is a choice. Team Metal is an Eggman attack force that appears briefly in the Archie Sonic comics. As the newly formed Team Freedom is able to successfully repel an Eggman attack on New Mobotropolis, the Doctor sends out Metal Sonic along with a Metal Tails and a Metal Amy, seemingly paralleling the also newly formed Team Fighters. While the trio of robots initially appear that they could be a problem, the arrival of the secret Freedom Fighters turns the battle extremely one-sided, much to Eggman's frustration.
No way! I can't believe this!
Mordred Hood is an antagonist who appears in the Archie Sonic comics. With a mastery over the power of hypnosis, he ruled over the kingdom of Mercia for Eggman, where he and his men would eventually run afoul of the Chaotix, who would end up freeing all the prisoners from his dungeon. He is among the very few characters who debuted pre-reboot to appear post-reboot, now an Egg Boss overseeing the continent of Urish. His hypnotic abilities have now been replaced by Eggman technologically augmenting him to give him the ability to induce vertigo, which he uses to break Wendy Naugus' control of the Witch Carters. Unfortunately, due to the comic's abrupt ending, his character wasn't able to be explored in depth. Jackrabbit is a character who appears in the Archie Sonic comics. The leader of a group known as the Sandblasters, and allegedly inspired by Sonic, he and his group protected Sandblast City from a group of hostile roboticized Mobians, and even had the town encased in a force field to protect it. However, after crossing paths with Sonic and seeing how quickly he's able to take out the attackers, he plots to keep Sonic and Tails in the city permanently, though the two would manage to escape, taking down the force field in the process. He would return later, sending out a distress call in an attempt to lure Sonic in to get revenge, though Bunny would end up answering the call instead. But she thankfully would be able to escape as well. He wouldn't make another prominent appearance until nearly 100 issues later, where he and the Sandblasters would be locked in conflict against the Dark Egg Legion, though his more villainous tendencies and grudge toward the Freedom Fighters seems to still be present. Astal, the title character of a 1995 Sega Saturn platformer, makes a handful of cameos in the Archie Sonic comics, usually in art drawn by Patrick Spaziante. His sole appearance in the actual pages of the book is in issue 50, where he's shown to be a participant in the Great War between the Mobians and the Overlanders, seemingly retroactively being considered a Mobian. After this, he only appears on Spaziante's covers, including those of issue 51, issue 69, issue 77, issue 89, and finally right on the middle of the cover for issue 125. He also cameos as Tails' childhood toy on the covers of Sonic Super Special number 5 and number 9. Knuckles' dad microwaved him. In issue 25 of the Archie Knuckles comic, Knuckles finally reunites with his long-absent father, Locke, and is subsequently filled in on some history of the Echidna and his reasoning for disappearing for so long. One of these revelations is that after having a nightmare that is subsequently interpreted to be a vision of the future, Locke began biologically augmenting himself to ensure Knuckles' DNA is further changed. And after that, before Knuckles was hatched, yes, Echidna lay eggs, Locke exposed the egg to chaos energy radiation, essentially microwaving him. This event is responsible for all of Knuckles' special abilities, including having spiked knuckles where other Echidna, well, don't. This is all to ensure that Knuckles becomes the savior that Locke foresaw in his dream. This is a weird one. Thanks, Ken! M is an Eggman creation that appears in the Archie Sonic comics. Identifying Eggman as her father, she made her mysterious first appearance shortly after Sonic returned from space, though her role would become clear a few issues later, as she defended her father against Sonic and even managed to injure the Blue Hedgehog. She may have even ended up defeating him had it not been for the intervention of Bunny and the other Freedom Fighters. Even though they ended up destroying her, Eggman rebuilt her a short time later, and she would stick around the comic until Eggman's AI Adam convinced the Doctor that M was trying to betray him, causing him to order her to self-destruct, and he would subsequently delete all her files from his database, ensuring that she could never be rebuilt. Tiara Boobowski was a pitched but ultimately unused Sonic character. Intended for an appearance in the cancelled game Sonic Extreme, she, occasionally joined by her father Gazebo, would have assisted Sonic in several of the game's proposed storylines, with Tiara even occasionally being considered to be a playable character. On top of this, she was also planned to be a new love interest for Sonic. Despite never making a proper game appearance, she did receive 2 cameos in the Archie comics, the first in a crowd shot in the already cameo-filled issue 134, and then with blonde hair as a waitress in issue 138. While Ian Flynn stated he would have loved to use her in a more notable form, some unclear legal issues prevented him from doing so. Neo Metal Sonic makes a handful of appearances in the comics. While initially only his design was used for the Metal Sonic Troopers, who I've talked about before, he made his first proper appearance post-reboot in issue 270, when the comic flashed back to the events just prior to Sonic Heroes, and is seen allying with Breezy the Hedgehog. While that appearance is fairly minor, IDW would make him the main villain of the first arc. Eggman having begun repairs on him during the events of Sonic Forces, he was completed sometime after Eggman's defeat. Despite this, as the Doctor's ambition was programmed into him, he attempts to lead the Eggman Empire to conquest once more, despite the Doctor's absence. Zodick the Hellhog is a parody of Sonic that appears in the Dreamcast horror game Illbleed. The boss of the game's 6th area, Zodick is the guardian of Toy Hell, who the action figure Cork must battle to save his girlfriend. He attacks the player with spin attacks and even drops rings when he's damaged. At the end of the battle, however, he's revealed to just be an animatronic controlled by the workers of the Illbleed theme park. one of whom is voiced by Ryan Drummond, Sonic's official voice actor at this time.
It's strange. What does Zodick's strength gauge show?
Axel the Water Buffalo is a character who appears in the Archie comics and is yet another Egg Boss. Happening to be the first of the Egg Bosses Eggman meets when arriving in the rebooted timeline, he oversees the Eggman troops in the continent of Africa. No prizes for guessing what that's based off of. Notably, he's among the few Egg Bosses to have a direct confrontation with Sonic post-reboot, and even believes that he won the encounter, though in reality Sonic was mainly acting as a distraction. Like all the other Egg Bosses, he's called upon by Eggman to help deal with the Naugus twins, where he's shown to be surprisingly loyal to the Doctor, despite openly acknowledging that he doesn't like him. The Zed Monkeys are a parody of the X-Men who appear in issue 96 of the Fleetway Sonic comics. Sonic meets the team when passing through a town known as Mutant Village. Their team consists of their leader, Cycleclips, Armpit, Grey Jeans, Chimpoline, and Snow Monkey. Unfortunately, they aren't too effective as a crime-fighting team, as at 10 o'clock they have to stand around and pose for an hour. You know, how comics in the 90s were. Sonic, perturbed by their uselessness, confronts their mentor, Professor Zed, who he reveals is actually their sworn enemy, Mad Mino. After this revelation, the Zed Monkeys change their ways, and instead of posing for an hour, they're now gonna stand around and feel bad for themselves for an hour. You know, how comics in the 90s were. Inigo Cortez is a scrapped character who was meant to appear as the main antagonist in the unpublished Sonic Universe number 95. A servant of Mordred Hood, he would have not only taken over Castle du Colette, but also wielded one of the sacred swords. Initially appearing to completely outclass both Sonic and Antoine, and believing Antoine to be nothing more than a coward, the odds would be evened when Antoine would happen across a second of the sacred swords in the castle, and is able to defeat Inigo, earning his respect. While this comic was never properly published, the team over at the fan comic Archie Sonic Online have created a restored version of it, based on the original pencils if you are interested in reading it. Small correction I feel the need to throw in, while the restoration is linked on the Archie Sonic Online website, their team isn't a direct contributor. It's a separate team, Archie Sonic Restoration, which handled this. Judging from their social media, they haven't been active in some time, but hopefully they'll either return or some other group will pick up where they left off. Way before Scourge turned green, Fleetway had its own green hedgehog, Cosmic the Hedgehog. Appearing in issue 31, he jumps in to save several Mobians, stealing all the glory from Sonic, making the blue hero extremely jealous. Cosmic uses this to bait Sonic into a race, which Tails comments is probably a trap, but Sonic ignores him. While Sonic does win the race, Cosmic is revealed to actually be the shapeshifter Metamorphia. She attempts to capture Sonic, but he gets away, leading her to transform back into Cosmic to chase after him. Unfortunately for her, Robotnik's badniks get confused at the new hedgehog firing at her instead of Sonic, leading to her defeat. Speedy, also known as Battle Cuckoo 16, is an antagonist in the Sonic series. Making his sole game appearance as a boss in Tails' adventure, he would make his first appearance in the comics in issue 17 of Archie's Sonic Universe. The son of the current leader of the Battlebird Armada, as his name suggests, he is very fast. He first comes into conflict with Tails after seeing his ability to fly, believing he has no right to do so as the sky belongs to the birds. After this arc, he would make several more appearances in the comics, both coming into conflict with the Babylon Rogues, and as he is a character who originated from a game, surviving the transition to post-reboot with a slightly tweaked design. As of the time of writing this, he has not made an appearance in the IDW comics, but I do think he's on the table to make some sort of appearance in the classic comics in the future. Tonic the Hedgehog is a character who appears in issue 51 of the Fleetway Sonic comics. After Sonic and the Freedom Fighters ambush Robotnik's badniks carrying a prisoner, their rescuee reveals himself to be a hedgehog named Tonic, who claims to be Sonic's long-lost twin brother. Sonic immediately thinks this is nonsense, as he knows he doesn't have a brother, though Tonic claims this is because they were separated when they were babies. He offers to join the Freedom Fighters, which Sonic quickly turns down, stating that they can't trust him, causing Sonic's so-called brother to run away in tears. While the Freedom Fighters yell at Sonic for being the way he is, Tails goes to check on Tonic, only to discover that he's not only working for Robotnik, but he is once again the shapeshifter, Metamorphia. Thankfully, the Freedom Fighters come to Tails' aid, quickly dispatching the shapeshifter. Coral the Betta is a character who appears in the post-reboot Archie Sonic comics. The priestess of the Yusa-based shrine, she and her apprentice, Pearly the Manta Ray, oversee the temple, its surrounding Chao Garden, and the sacred Chao Aquarius. Sonic and company first meet her during the Shattered World Crisis, and unfortunately during this time, Aquarius is taking longer to reincarnate than usual, leading the king and queen of the Kingdom of Meropis to strip her of her title as priestess. Eventually, however, with a tiny bit of help from Tikal, Aquarius does reincarnate, this time into an immortal Chaos Chao, earning her back her position as priestess. Past the storyline, she makes a few small appearances, where it's further reasserted she and Razor the Shark have mutual feelings for one another. The Shijin Warriors are a group of freedom fighters who appear in the post-reboot Archie Sonic comics. Led by Dulcie the Dragon, the team protects the in-universe continent of Eurasia. The other members of the team include Jian the White Tiger, Bunker the Tortoise, and Cinder the Pheasant. Dulcie, wanting to impress the freedom fighters, is initially worried about how her small team would compare against them, but they definitely prove themselves while teaming against Conquering Storm's army. Now, there is technically a similar group of freedom fighters that's referenced pre-reboot, but it's heavily implied they got by a mind-controlled Monkey Khan. Titan Metal Sonic, more officially called Metal Sonic Kai, is a transformation for Metal Sonic that first appeared in Knuckles Chaotix. But beyond that sole game appearance, it has made a few appearances in the comics. In Archie, it first appeared in the adaptation of Knuckles Chaotix, with Knuckles growing giant and the two getting in a big kaiju fight. The form would then be absent from the comic for 15 years before returning in issue 231, though its rampage would be stopped by the wizard Naugus. It would return a few issues later, however, combined with the robotic plant the Krudzu. Post-reboot, it would make a single appearance in an off-panel comic, though it was intended to have a much larger appearance in the unpublished Sonic Universe 97. Over in Fleetway, Emperor Metallix is apparently lightly based on this form, though the inspiration is primarily aesthetic. Near the end of Archie's run on the Sonic comics, Nicole's handheld is destroyed, leading Sally and Tails to assume that she didn't make it. Thankfully, Nicole is able to back herself up on Tails' Miles Electric, only able to manifest herself as text on screen. But what would have happened after that? In the pencils of the unpublished Archie Sonic 292, we see Tails and Rotor working together to restore Nicole, though it doesn't seem that they are able to reconstruct her handheld, leaving her stuck in a computer for the time being. The pencils to the unpublished Sonic Universe 97 show that Nicole would have once again come into conflict with the computer virus Phage, while Sally, Amy, and Cream would seek out help from Nicole's creator, Dr. Elodie. Unfortunately, we don't have any dialogue to accompany these panels, so the exact context is unclear. So what's Big the Cat doing during the Zombot Arc? The 2020 IDW Sonic Annual features the story Big's Big Adventure, which establishes where Big has been since the book's first issue. Big is once more trying to find Froggy, who had hopped off again. Despite being present for the events of the Neo Metal arc, he doesn't seem to notice, understand, or even care what's happening around him. This remains true for the Zombot arc, as he's so focused on finding Froggy, he doesn't notice the outbreak, only narrowly avoiding becoming a victim of the outbreak at Restoration HQ, as he gave up trying to get in the building. Big eventually finds Froggy, only for the pair to be accosted by Zombot shortly after. Big fights to protect his friend, but in the fight, Froggy gets infected, unintentionally infecting Big and the world around them. Big, again, doesn't notice, just saying he's happy to be home with his friend. In Archie Sonic 242, Sonic and company get to attend the Olympics. Unfortunately for them, Eggman booby-trapped all the events, capturing all of Sonic's friends one by one, until only Sonic remained. Sonic, however, is able to play off the Doctor's ego and gets him to agree to a competition, and if Sonic wins, he'll be able to free his friends. Eggman, of course, calls on Metal Sonic to compete for him, and the two end up competing against each other in almost every event. While completely exhausted by the final event, he's motivated by the power of the Olympic spirit and is able to beat Metal and rescue his friends. Tails asks him if after all that, he'll sit out on the real Olympics, to which Sonic responds that he had too much fun to wait 4 years to do it again. In this issue's off-panel comic, Blaze carries the Olympic torch, only to trip and cause it to go out, and she desperately tries to relight it. This isn't the first Archie Sonic Olympic event, as Sonic competed in the Robotropolis Olympic Games all the way back in issue 5. The Bride of Constant Vigil is a character who appears in the Archie Sonic comics. The leader of the Shinobi clan, the same clan Espio originated from, she would side with the Iron Dominion. However, she only did this as she feared what would happen to her clan had she attempted to stand against them. And at the first opportunity, she and her clan would leave the Iron Dominion. Most interestingly though, she's stated to be Espio's mother. While heavily implied in the pages of Sonic Universe 16, it was confirmed as a certainty in the Archie Sonic Encyclopedia. Thank you so much for watching. I want to give a shout out to everyone who supports me on Patreon, and a special shout out to my $5 patrons, NateDM990, Diddly Do, and Queer Kaiju. See y'all in the next video.